Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Turbo Takes Pod. We're stoked to be with you. Tonight's a special night. We've got the release of the college football playoff rankings, the first list, and I say we start there. I've got some heat, but I'm gonna turn it over to you, Garrett. Let's hear from you first.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see kind of with this expanded playoff what the committee is going to do, where they're going to weight certain things, strength of record, strength of resume, wins, losses, right? Because it's so much deeper than that. And as much as people don't want to believe that some conferences are better than others, there are. I think that, I'll be the first one to call out SEC bias when I see it, and I see it too much. That being said, you're going to hear a lot of clamoring from people talking about how the SEC has, four, or I guess in their rankings they had 3, 4, 5, and 6 were all SEC teams, but I actually had them all in the same spot, close or similar to it. So it was interesting to see that. I think the big win for us BYU fans is seeing BYU at 7.
7's great.
I projected them at 7 in a matchup with Notre Dame at 10 in my rankings. That's exactly what the committee saw. I didn't think necessarily that the committee would see it that way. I didn't think that they would rank BYU that way, but it's a big win for BYU. It's a bigger win for the Big 12, because you've got, BYU, Tech, and Utah all lurking at large bids. So those are my just immediate reactions. It's nice because then really this week, if BYU ends up losing to Tech, you either flip-flop them, but either way, none of them are going to drop below 13 because they can't drop lower than Utah. So a lot of football to play, but I think, oddly enough, I think the committee did a good job with the rankings this time around.
Yeah. So. I don't have many complaints. I've got a couple things that really, kind of, piqued my interest and kind of had my wheels turning a little bit. First I'll turn to, obviously, we got the BYU bias on this show, especially me. I feel like I'm very, I've got the blue goggles on pretty frequently, but I was pretty shocked to see Utah is in the spot that they were in. I haven't been that impressed. I think Dampier's thrown a decent chunk of picks. I feel like they've taken care of business against the teams that they needed to, but their only 2 tests, they laid an egg. Like even the BYU game, that 24-21 score, it was not 24-21. Kalani could have taken extra points and that game would have been a 2-score game, and Utah fans would have been wondering what hit them, right? It very well should have been a 2-score game. And then they got railroaded by Tech, and they had a backup quarterback in for 2.5 quarters, right? So I'm a little bit shocked to see them that low, especially they were over Louisville, right? So I'm big Louisville guy, right? So that's my second team, having lived there for a little while. And, Louisville's only loss is to a ranked number 12 Virginia team, right? So
in
I'm
overtime.
Confused. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. Wins against Miami, and then obviously the ACC's not quite as competitive as the other conferences, and they're probably bottom tier when it comes to some of the power conferences. But I was shocked, and I don't understand what Utah has done to justify the 13 ranking, only 1 spot outside of a college football playoff bid. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Utah won the games that they needed to win, and they did it big, right? And that's a key thing. On the other side of it, just kind of have to look at it as a almost a nod of the cap to the Big 12, right? Yeah. I mean, if Utah's only 2 losses are to the top 2 teams in the Big 12, it goes to show for something. Same thing, when you see Texas and Oklahoma getting the nod there at 11 and 12 with 2 losses because the SEC teams they lost to, or Ohio State that Texas lost to, it's kind of a nod to the SEC. That being said, the ACC, unfortunately, they were 1-7 against the Big 12 this year. So, it's a bad look. It's just kind of those non-conference games knocked them off their rocker. I think originally with Georgia Tech and Miami, people really, really thought that conference was a little bit more competitive than it actually was. When you see Miami, that was the first time they'd actually left the state of Miami, or state of Florida. Miami, they went to Dallas, and they obviously did not. They played well below what I think their skill level is. So
I don't know when we're going to have the conversation about Carson Beck's interception problem. It's unbelievable. He's been bitten by the bug. He needs Jameis Winston to come in there and say a prayer. You know what I mean? It's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, he definitely turns the ball over in inopportune times. But that being said, I had Louisville. I think is still very much in the hunt. If you're on that bubble there, 11 through 14, your main mentality here is just win out, win games. I
Yep.
think that's kind of the ironic thing about the Utah situation is they don't like that they lost to Tech. They don't like that they lost to BYU. Right now, they kind of need both those teams to keep winning so that the Big 12 does look like that strong conference that it is. Because beyond those two losses that we can call quality losses now for Utah, they have the win against Cincinnati, but I think Cincinnati's a little bit of a paper tiger, and we'll see. I may put my foot in my mouth when BYU goes down to Cincinnati, and if that's a closer game or if BYU loses, I might look like a fool. But yeah, it's early, right? I like to, as soon as this expanded playoff started, basically the season starts in November. They have all the data, and then now the season started. So hopefully BYU can learn from last year when they started 8-0 and pull out the games that they need to win.
And I think one thing I will say before all the Utah fans, I know we got some Utah fans that follow us. I will say, Utah, if you go look at the defensive and offensive rankings for the Big 12 specifically, Utah's, I think, top 3 in both. So they've played really well. And like you said, they've lost to the 2 best teams in the conference. So Utah is a good football program. Don't get me wrong. I have a hard time. I don't know. I'm interested to see how it plays out. We'll put it that way. Utah needs BYU to win out because really they're hoping for a tiebreak. A lot would have to happen for Utah to make it to the Big 12 championship. But who knows? Maybe the Big 12 Tech's only loss is BYU, and BYU wins out, and Utah wins out, and maybe we get 3 teams. I don't know.
Yeah, you may also get your wish too. I think the ACC and the Big 12, that's the tie-in for the Pop-Tart Bowl. So maybe you get a Louisville and Utah playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl, just first teams out of the playoffs. So it'll be fun down the road to kind of see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say too, last tidbit on college football, and then we can kind of move down the list. I know we're going to recap our team's games from this weekend, but one thing that I think is cool as a Cougar fan, even if BYU lays an egg, they lose 2 out of the last 4 games or something like that, miss the college football playoff. The record is good enough that it would be fun to play one of the big powerhouses, match up with a Vandy, match up with a Tennessee, get into one of those bowl games with one of the powerhouse SEC programs, or I just think that there's a lot to be excited about for Big 12 fans and especially BYU fans. Like nobody thought that BYU was going to be this good, especially 2 years in a row with a true freshman QB. So pretty fire, but
yeah, for sure.
Jumping in NFL, obviously I'm a big Broncos guy. I want to give my little 30-second tidbit. Cap me at any moment. I'll try and keep it under 60 seconds. But Broncos gritted out a nice little win. Played against Davis Mills most of the game. People wanted it to be a dirty hit against CJ Stroud. Go watch the replay. It was totally clean. CJ just slid really weird. Broncos didn't allow a touchdown, which I loved. I thought that it was super cool to see the Broncos go in and Davis Mills is an okay quarterback. He's a solid backup. So to watch them only allow field goals and really just go out and kind of show that even without Pat Surtain, they're very elite on the defensive side was awesome. And then last but not least, like the Texans have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and the Broncos were able to go in and have several very solid drives. Obviously they had a blocked field goal. Obviously Bo threw a pick. Like there are some things to clean up. Bo, I think, was like 18 for 37, which is disgusting. You can't do that and be considered elite, but showed up when he needed to, right? Mounted another comeback. Broncos improved to 7-2, tied for the best record in the league. And their only 2 losses are walk-off field goals to 2 playoff teams, and one of them has the best record in the NFL. So that's my two cents. A lot to be excited about. Another gimme game, hopefully this week against the Raiders, and hopefully the Broncos will get their 8th win through week 10.
Yeah, things are. I don't want to talk about the Broncos right now. They're looking scary as a Chiefs fan. They did everything they need to do. Bo has some brain farts here and there, but then he turns around and makes a play when you need him to. So
Tell us. I know we'll do quick recap here because I know that there's still probably some hurt we're processing through. But tell us about this Bills Chiefs game. What did you see on your end?
I think I talked about it just briefly in our last episode. Just touched on, hey, every time they play, it's going to be a game where Josh Allen goes off, and well, that's exactly what happened. 21 of 24, I think.
Yeah,
250 something plus yards. What I am tired of hearing from Bills fan is that he doesn't have any help. First of all, Joe Brady is, I think, one of the best OCs in the game, and James Cook is a top 3 running back in the NFL. He's kind of stapled
absolutely.
that. So that doesn't not to take anything away from Josh Allen because he still has to play amazing, right, for them to win. But they're hitting their stride. That said, I don't want to be that guy, and I'm not trying to come across as kind of corny or a jerk in any way. But I'm still. Everyone's like, is the Chiefs? Is it over? Is this the year? I don't know. The last 5 years they've beat us in the regular season, and then it doesn't matter in
Yeah,
January. I can tell you one thing right now: if there's a team, and the Bills do end up somehow making a push for the 2 or 3 seed in the playoffs, 1 seed, whatever it may be, the last team they want to see pulling into their stadium before the conference championship game is Kansas City.
absolutely.
So I look
I think you can say that about most teams too. Like even though the
probably.
Chiefs look shaky in a lot of ways, like it's scary. Patrick Mahomes is already, in my opinion, a top 5 quarterback of all time, and he's still got plenty of good years left. And then you put in my opinion, the second best tight end to ever play football, and then you put in arguably a top 5 coach to ever coach on the gridiron. So I'm personally in the same boat. I like the Chiefs for what they do. I hate them as a divisional rival, but anyone that tries to say that the Chiefs are still not a contender and that it's over, that you don't know ball. You haven't watched enough football to understand that you can never count the Chiefs out.
And I just want to, before we kind of move on from this, in case it gets to the point where the Chiefs maybe miss the playoffs this year, or the Chiefs lose in the playoffs this year, just to kind of put it out there, Brady has missed the playoffs before,
Yep.
and Brady has lost in the playoffs before. What should scare everybody is that there were 10 years between Tom Brady's 3rd and his 4th Super Bowl. Do you guys know how many Super Bowls Tom Brady won? If there was 10 years between his 3rd and his 4th, Pat has 3 right now. He's got Brady has 7 rings.
Yeah.
So I caution anybody that's going to jump on and say that it's over for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And you can never doubt Pat. I'm pissed off about the deadline. I don't want to get riled up, but
That's a good segue. I think the deadline's been interesting. I mean, both of our teams very quiet, right? So I was a little bit surprised, from a Broncos perspective. I was shocked that we didn't bring in one more receiver target. You had some decent targets that were on the market, or at least rumored to be on the market. Several got dealt. Broncos also need a little bit of depth while Pat Surtain's hurt. I think that they could have bolstered that defensive back room, and just really their secondary, and they chose not to, and decided that their team was good how they are, which in a lot of ways, shout out to Sean Payton for saying, hey, we've got our guys. We've been relatively healthy. I don't want anyone thinking like we're going to mix up the mojo. Like our locker room's happy. Let's go. But yeah, trade deadline. What surprised you so far as some of the deals and some of the trades that we've seen come across the board?
Yeah. I mean, I for one, I think what it came down to with the Broncos is the one target that I saw that I was really, I mean, as a fan of the Chiefs, nervous about, but as just a fan of football, thought would be really good for them was the Waddle rumors. Jalen Waddle was rumored to be in talks. I'm assuming the asking price was too high.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing to talk about deadline is the Jets. I mean, complete fire sale. I want to clarify the term fire sale because it actually wasn't a fire sale. Fire sale implies, cheap discounts. You're just dumping things off. They got a lot in return. And if you don't watch college football or you don't watch too much of pro football, the 2027 draft class, so next year or in the 2 years, I guess, from now, is going to be one of the most stacked draft classes in the NFL history, I think. And so they basically have secured themselves 4, I think, first-round picks over the next 2 years.
Big.
They got a lot in return. That being said, I was happy for my friends that are Cowboys fans. Jerry went out, and their defense has been awful. They went and got Logan Wilson from the Bengals, which people are like, Bengals suck. He's one of the best, coverage linebackers. I think he's got the most interceptions from middle linebackers of the last 2 seasons. And then they go get Quinnen Williams from the Jets for a couple picks. That's going to help bolster up that defensive line. So a lot of crazy stuff. Sauce Gardner was a big one. I think the biggest thing that told me is, the Colts want it bad. They have the roster, and I think the Colts have always kind of been close. They finally got a rhythm with this Daniel Jones coming in. He feels comfortable in the system, and that's exciting for them. It's really exciting for them, I think.
And I think it'll be, to touch on 2 of your points, Cowboys fans should be excited. I think that is obviously a good deadline for them. I would put the Cowboys a tier below the Chiefs in terms of teams you don't want to see in the playoffs. But if the Cowboys can find a way to get in as a wild card team, they have the best offense in the NFL, right? They've been electric. They've got 2 of the probably top 10, top 15 receivers in the NFL. I put Pickens and CD probably top 15, both of them. They've got one of the best tight ends in football. They've got one of the most explosive running backs. He's had some bad moments this year too, but Javonte Williams has been nasty this year. He's been so good. Right. So I would put them kind of in that tier. So to see them bolster that defense and say, hey, we're okay. Like we may be, 4 losses in, 5 losses in to start this year. We may be, I think they're 3-5 or might be 3-4-1 because I think they had that tie game, right? But for me, I personally think that the Cowboys are one of those teams that's a sleeper as well, heading into the playoffs and getting closer to the race for the playoffs. But and then to close out the Colts, I think that the Colts are. Daniel Jones just needs to stay consistent. He had some struggles against Pittsburgh, and they looked pretty rough. And that game really was a blowout until the last, 7 minutes. They were able to get a couple scores to close out the game. But it'll be interesting to see. And I think that the interesting part about the AFC right now, and this all comes back to your Chiefs, and then I'll jump off my soapbox, but right now, the AFC is being led by Daniel Jones, who has proven time and time again that he has his struggles and he has his moments. He has his moments of greatness and he has his moments of just absolute stupidity, like just terrible football. Then you've got Drake May, who is I don't really believe he's in the MVP talks, but he is right now, according to most analysts. But he's young and inexperienced. And then you've got Bo Nix, who is young and inexperienced. So really the next team on that list is the Steelers. And the AFC is wide open. You've got 3 young, unexperienced quarterbacks, and then Aaron Rodgers, 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. So the AFC is wide open. It's still wide open for anyone's taking, and it's really just going to be interesting to see, how everything shakes down because it's a weird spot. I've never seen the AFC look like this before. So,
yeah, it's been a fat minute, that's for sure. It'll be good. I think it's just like we said with the college football playoff. It's November. This is week 7 we just had, right?
Week 8. Yeah.
Week 8 that we just had. So that's a lot of football left. 9 weeks of football.
we're just about halfway through the season. I think Thursday will mark the halfway point to this season, and it'll be cool. Some notable names. We'll close off the trade deadline. Some notable names that I was kind of surprised that didn't get dealt. There was a lot of talk that Chris Olave was going to get dealt, and Denver was a suitor for him. Coming out of New Orleans, I thought for sure Sean Payton was going to make a push for him. Nothing happened there. Trey Hendrickson, unfortunately, continuing just wasted years in Cincinnati. Pretty tough for him. And then outside of that, there was, you mentioned Waddle, you've got Minka Fitzpatrick, just some names that I was very surprised that didn't get dealt to a contender.
Yeah. I'm pretty frustrated as a Chiefs fan. I wanted us to go make a move. I think that it was rumored Breece Hall was on the market from the Jets, and they wanted a 3rd rounder. And for whatever reason, Veach is a little more frugal and wanted to, and I think he offered a 4th-round pick that was conditional that could potentially turn into a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough to get Brees Hall. I'll just put this out there. I'm frustrated not making a move because the Chiefs are kind of in uncharted territory, or I guess I won't say uncharted territory. They've been kind of back against the wall like this before, but there are clear holes on our team. I'm not as mad about not getting Brees Hall as I am just like anybody. Like
Not
the
doing
defensive line, I think that our pass rush is awful right now. There were suitors out there, Jermaine Johnson. We could have gotten Quinton Williams. We could have gotten, there were so many guys that went or were rumored to go. So all I'm going to say is I trust Andy Reid. They got a bye week coming up, and I guess that's the one last thing I'll say about it. I was like refreshing on Twitter every 5 minutes today, like waiting for Veach to make. It was like that meme, where it's like, come on, do something, and it's like poking it with a stick. But
you get the same vibes as a Utah Jazz fan. The last couple of years it seemed like they were going to build around that core when Donovan and Rudy were here, and they were like, there were guys on the market, and for some reason the Jazz are like, let's deal one of our bottom bench players. Let's send George Niang. Let's send him out to Cleveland. That'll be good. Like, that was a bad example because that didn't happen, but you get what I'm saying. Just for whatever reason, people decide that it's not the time and that it's just, not going to happen. I don't like it. It sucks as a fan. It feels like you're just stagnant, but I guess we got to trust, right? And no one better to trust than Andy Reid. So I think you're in good hands.
Yeah. It'll be good. So.
Okay, so I got one more off topic. We were going to bring this up last episode, and then I spaced it. So this is for our sports betting crowd. So for anyone that is into the sports betting scene, I had to talk about some beef that I have with some of the sports betting companies that have been coming out. I like to, do over-under bets every once in a while, prize picks, sleeper, whatnot. And there's all of these apps popping up, right? And they advertise these like 200x payouts. So of course you get curious and you're like, what does that mean? You go click these apps, the way they get you. A lot of people I think can hit like a 2-player or 3-player parlay, right? If you're putting together, you pick 3 guys that you think are going to perform well. I think people hit those parlays every single day, and probably pretty close to like a 50-50 split, as long as you're pretty knowledgeable. The way that they get you, and the way that I think a lot of these companies exploit men and women across the world that are into sports betting and think that it's fun to do responsibly. I have to throw on responsibly because I'll never be an advocate for mass gambling with large amounts of money, but they get you with these 200x multipliers where they're like, hey, add another player 10x, add another player 15x, add another player 30x. So next thing you know, you're looking and you're like, oh, hey, that $5 bet that I was going to do, that could turn into 150. I should try it. And that money's just straight down the toilet. It's like playing a claw machine. So my fair warning to all of our viewers out there, stay away from the mass multipliers. If you are a sports betting fan, stick to the nice little 3x, 4x, 5x multipliers that are more likely to hit. Don't give in to the bait that you're going to hit a 200x multiplier. You're not going to hit it. You're going to waste your money. Your wife's going to smack you, and it's going to suck. And I'm not speaking from experience. I got to put my hands up. It's not. Got to make that perfectly clear. But I just had to get on and give my little rant that I think it's predatory for these companies to come out here and try and entice people with these bets that no one is hitting. So you don't even have to add anything to that. I had to give my 2 cents. I think it's crazy.
Hey, I got no qualms with what you said. No argument whatsoever.
There we go. I had to give my warning out to our limited viewers and tell people I think it's fun, but you got to be careful. And I think that there's a lot of predatory sports betting companies out there right now, and I didn't think that they could get more predatory. So we'll leave it at that.
Money.
Yep, it's all about cash, and we're seeing it on a major level. But all right, let's move into pop culture. You picked our topic today. I'm gonna let you kind of introduce it. We can do a little discussion on this. This is a good one.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been I don't know, the wrapping up the summer, and I was just looking at the movies that have come out over the summer, and man, I was looking at the two blockbuster movies for Marvel and for DC for the summer, right? The big summer movie, Marvel, Fantastic Four, and obviously DC, Superman. So it kind of just got me thinking. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. As far as just, well, I guess from two levels, as far as from a cinematic universe and as far as just from straight comic books and for your enjoyment and entertainment, what I guess like superheroes you think are cooler. Which are you taking right now, and like current trajectory? Which way are you rolling?
That's tough. So the way that I see it, and I've always kind of felt this way about DC and Marvel. I feel like DC is meant to be more standalone. You've got bits and pieces that intertwine, but I don't feel like the universe is quite as meshed as Marvel has made it over the past few years. Over the past, wow, I'm getting old. Like over the past like 10 to 12 years, really. First Iron Man came out what, late 2000s? Like
2008.
yeah,
Yeah.
2008, 2009. So in my opinion, I think that Marvel's done a better job of tying in every movie to where you're like, you've got people telling you, do not watch Captain Marvel without watching this movie. Or before you watch the other movies, go back and watch Captain Marvel. It'll tie in pieces to, you know, the main story. So from a universe standpoint, I'm MCU all the way. Um, that's kind of how I feel. I feel like the MCU ties everything better together, and they do a really good job of making it so you're curious about every single thing. Like even Loki, you turn on Loki, that stuff had my mind blown, and they did a really good job. I honestly think that the writers of Loki and the directors of Loki thought about it, and they were like, how can we keep stretching this Marvel franchise? Like we're running out of ideas. I'm not sure how much more we can do, budget wise. I feel like we're going to run into more flops. And they were like, wait, let's talk about the multiverse. Let's show 700 Loki variants. And now all of a sudden there's a world where it's like, you can bring in every single character from the MCU and make a variant movie. So like from a universe perspective, I am Marvel through and through. Um, I'll, I'll let you answer that question first, and then I'll dive into my take on DC.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I've just got to kind of move to the side there. You guys can see that Spider-Man poster in the back. Spider-Man's always been my guy. I think I agree to you to the point of having set up and where it's been, right? With the MCU, I think that they've done a better job of kind of aligning things. That being said, when I look back at the current trajectory of everything, I hope Marvel gets back to its peak, but I mean, really, since Endgame, it's gotten a little bit harder. And I think they kind of had to figure out the direction with the multiverse. Where were they going to go? The Kang universe didn't really work out like they thought it was going to work out. And then on the flip side, I think DC made a brilliant move going and getting James Gunn, who
Yeah.
wanted kind of his creative, to take over. And for those of you guys that don't know, James Gunn, he directed, the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. He knows how to make superhero movies, and I think he saw the success Marvel had in stringing together the universe, and now he can kind of put that to work in his vision. And I think starting it with Superman is the way to go, right? We saw Snyder want to do that. It just, I don't know. Snyder, his films were great as standalones. I didn't love the Justice Leagues. I didn't love the cast. It's just cool now that there's this DC's, hey, we're doing this. We're doing the universe thing. James Gunn, you're the guy for it. And we're going to let you run with it. So I think the trajectory side of it, like when I was looking back in the movies this year, I was like, as far as blockbusters, like go-to movies, that I enjoyed Superman more than I liked Fantastic Four, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
Not to say that Fantastic Four was a bad movie. I personally liked Superman a lot more. So it's a complicated question, I know, that I asked, but
the thing that I'll add too, and I would guess that you probably agree with this too. You look at the movies that are coming out, like Marvel, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were two major releases this year, right? You had Thunderbolts beginning of the year, and then you had Fantastic Four First Steps, right? So both of those movies debuted and they were rated very high. My rule of thumb is if you're over like a 6.5 on IMDb, you're probably a pretty good movie, right? They both debuted at 7 out of 10 on IMDb, and then they were like up around 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. So really good standalone movies, but I think to my thought process is that it doesn't have much of a like progression, and I think that's what kind of draws people in. You get attached to characters, and you had some repeats with Thunderbolts, obviously. But I was a little bit like, man, like where do you go from here? Like these were great standalone movies, but it's just we're getting into that stage where I think that it's just going to be interesting where it all goes. Like,
Yeah, and to that point too, with DC, I think that's what's so awesome is because they're kind of resetting their universe and finally going to do it the right way. They have a lot of untapped just content that they can pull, and
yeah,
so like, and also just the way that they're doing it to where you don't have to wait for a whole year or over a year or 2 years between movies. You got Superman that came out, a month later, Peacemaker season 2 that came out, and it was like, hey, just so you guys know, this is officially going to set place. It's going to tie everything together. And then what I'm super pumped for is the Lantern series that's coming out early January, I think, or February. It comes out.
uh-huh,
That's going to be amazing. So it's just it'll be interesting to see because there's just so much new content,
yeah.
quality content, I should say, that we're going to get, and a lot more hype again. So, but then there's also still the weird thing where it's like, okay, Robert Pattinson is the Batman, but also it's not part of not part of James Gunn's universe. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting.
The next thing that I'll say, I think that, and somebody fact check me on this. I'm doing quick research because I was just thinking about it. Like you said, DC's trying to pump stuff out fast, right? I just went and looked. DC has been very sparse in how they've released their movies and when they've released their movies, right? Like if you go look at the movies coming out by year, it's pretty sparse, and some of them were just absolute, they weren't good. Like you look at Green Lantern, pretty bad. Not objectively, it's a pretty bad movie. Kind of
That
entertaining,
movie is
bad.
awful.
You look at some of these movies that kind of came out and they either flopped or there was just so much time in between them that I think DC didn't get as much respect as it deserved. Whereas you look at Marvel, and what I'm seeing on this list is that Marvel released 37 movies since '07. And that is absurd. You're looking at almost 3 movies per year, and the budget across these movies, you're looking at like $8 billion spent, and then you're looking at $33 billion in the box office. Like that's just a generational run. So for me, I think that it's cool that DC is upping their production. I also read online that Marvel's trying to increase their production and release 2 or 3 movies per year, which I think is great. I think that for a franchise and for someone that's trying to grow, consistency is key. It's the same with everything in life. Consistency leads to results, as long as you're putting in the right type of work, obviously. But I would like to see more with DC, more consistency, and that's where I think Marvel's kind of had them, is that they've put out banger after banger after banger, and it's been like this. Like it's
Yeah.
The first little bit they were cranking out movies like children. It was absurd. So that's kind of my thought process.
No, 100%. I agree with you to the point that I think Marvel has been better. I think as a person that, has loved the Marvel movies and the MCU, as cheesy as people think that is, like I enjoy them. I think they're fun. I think it's exciting, right? We all know, like, what do you do when you have a sluggish guy playing quarterback showing up to camp and he's being lazy? Oh, you bring somebody in for competition. You go sign a free agent to be like, hey, your job is not safe. And it's kind of nice now James Gunn's doing that. And now Marvel comes out and says, hey, we're going to come back to quality. We're going to try to start pumping more movies out. As they've kind of started to slip, DCU is going to kind of help rise that level. So hopefully the next year or so we get just some banger like series and movies from the comic book universes. But yeah, it should be good.
And I think, last thing I'll add, we talked about, the Batman trilogy, on a previous episode, but you go to IMDb's top superhero movies of all time. It goes Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins, and then it goes Avengers Endgame, Guardians of the Galaxy, and then Avengers Infinity War. And those are my favorite superhero movies. I'm not going to lie. I would put the OG Iron Man. Aside from the Dark Knight, the OG Iron Man, in my opinion, is the most bad A origin. Just, oh my goodness. That movie gives me the chills every time, man. It's so good. Run through it.
Spider-Man 2 though too, like with the Toby,
Yeah.
that movie's like
Yeah.
the epitome of a comic book movie. That Spider-Man 2. So that was pre MCU as well. So
Next week, I'm gonna give a little teaser because I think you'll agree this is a good topic of conversation. We're gonna talk about the best Spider-Man next week. We're gonna dive into everybody's strengths and weaknesses. I've got my opinion. I'm just based on that comment. I think that we've got a similar opinion on the peak Spider-Man. But next week, little preview. We're gonna talk about the best Spider-Man, and
yeah,
we'll go from there.
I like it. I like it.
But I think we can wrap it up. I've got some turbo takes for you if you're ready. I don't
yeah.
think these are going to be quite as tricky, but I think I'll still get the wheels turning just a little bit.
All right.
And let's run it. Okay.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, game-changing innovation, or potential threat?
Yes.
Yes.
I think anything that's a tool has the chance to be a weapon or detrimental.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I don't know if you've seen either of these, so you can go either direction. The Office, or Friends?
Office.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Okay. I'm not gonna disagree with any of these so far. Okay, tacos or burgers?
Burgers. I mean, burgers are like my favorite food, if you know me.
Okay.
So that nothing against tacos.
You have mentioned that burgers dude, I'm gonna throw this in again. Next week, I think we should talk about the versatility of food as well. Like if you had to be stranded on an island, I think that there's a couple ways that you could take this. I'm just throwing some previews. I've got the wheels are spinning. We're running out of time, but the wheels are spinning. Last question for you. City or small town?
Oh. This is tough. I'm gonna go city. I think I'd go city. Man, this is hard. I'm like kind of right in the middle, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think I'd love to have some land, and you can't really do that in the city.
Is there a suburb? We could add a suburb. We could add a suburb.
Suburbs would be the option, right? Somewhere where I can get some land.
Yeah.
And like almost like a Heber, right? Like, well,
yeah.
Heber of old, we'll say, because that's blowing up. We know how Utah is.
Yeah.
But yeah, but we'll go city for the sake of the pick. City, just because of the convenience of what's there.
Okay.
So
we'll leave it there. Guys, thanks for tuning into another episode. We're stoked to be making content. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys this upcoming week. We got some fun stuff. We gave you a couple teasers that I did not pre-approve with my co-hosts. So will they get scratched? Maybe. We'll see. But we'll catch
they'll get added.
Yeah. They'll get added. We'll see. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch y'all next week.
See you guys.